Okay, Santi, do you want to say something here?
Yes, I wanted to ask you about some funny story about Michael that you have told in the past, but I wanted to hear it again because I think it's so funny. It's when,
The tree.
yeah, the earthquake three story. Can you please tell us?
Yes.
It's a good story.
They're it's interesting because our uncle, we usually went to Neverland or we went to wherever he was at. He came over the day before. And I'm going to talk more about it in the series, but I'll tell you what basically what happened. It's interesting because I say he came over to our place to hang out and all that stuff. I didn't know the whole scenario of it, but what I've pieced together now is that that was the time when he was fighting for the civil case to go before the criminal case. I mean, the criminal case to go before the civil case.
Yeah, the earthquake put him,
Yeah,
gave him 15 days or something like that.
yeah, but there's that judgment that was going to happen in terms of in that way. And I think he came over our house almost as we always gave him a strength that I didn't even know we did in that way. We just loved hanging out with him. But I've noticed he always had us around when he needed it in that way. When the first allegation / extortion, I call it, we flew up to Singapore. We went to Bangkok first, but then we met him in Singapore for that aspect of it. He needed us there in that way. And the same thing for this. I think he got energy from us. He got a sense of that everything will be okay. We loved our uncle for our uncle. We didn't care that he was Michael Jackson. Yes, it was great to see him on stage. And when he's on stage, you're like, wow. But that's not what we liked hanging out with him. And I think he knew that. Like, we liked hanging out with him because we loved him in that way. And so I say that because that's preference to, we didn't know there was going to be an earthquake. That was there. But experiencing an earthquake with Michael Jackson is just a different experience. And so and this was our big earthquake, basically, in California. Northridge was not that far from where we were. I mean, it was, luckily we weren't in Northridge, but it was probably 10 to 15 miles away, which is not far when you're at the epicenter of an earthquake.
It was scary.
It was very scary, and it was very long. And so I remember these are the distinct memories I have. I remember my uncle grabbing a baseball bat, almost like, like he's like, and we were asking him, and he's like, "This is when people act crazy, Applehead," and you couldn't really fault him because people might, you've seen those movies where it's like people start, and so he had his baseball bat, and then he got upset at me because. I'm jumping the gun. I should talk about the tree thing. We had an aftershock, and he started climbing the tree, and we looked at him because we didn't we're just going off of what he's going off of because this is someone that studies everything. It's like whether it's architecture or paintings or music or film, he's well studied. So we're like, maybe he knows something we don't know, and so he's climbing this tree, and then we're like. What are you doing? And we weren't saying, what are you doing? This looks ridiculous. It's just like, why are you doing that? And he's like, this tree's not going anywhere. This tree's been here for, hundreds of years and like that. And so it was the most stable thing to have in that way. But it was just funny, that image of him climbing a tree, it was just, will always be with me. And then when we decided to leave, I had the bigger car at the time, in that way, because he got dropped off. But I had a big car, and we turn on the key, and I have no gas. And of course, Neverland, it was about 2.5 hour drive, and we would have to pass Northridge, which means there's no gas stations going to be open in that way. And he was so disappointed in me. He's like, you always have gas for these kind of occasions, and so we all had to pile into Terrell's car, which was. A different car. It was a smaller car. And so that was the memory of that, was that I've never seen my uncle mad at me or upset at me, but he was upset at me just because and so from then on, I've always, which is the moral of the story, ever since that time, I've always had gas, just, you know, just in case something happens, just because I was like, I couldn't argue. He was exactly right. You know, me being probably cheap or lazy didn't get gas, you know, in my car. But so it's just, it's a beautiful story only because it was so traumatic for us, like the earthquake actually, but then spending it with our uncle was what made it joyful. And I say that in a way because such great memories of that, traveling with him and him calling Neverland and find out that only like, I think like two little of those soldier statues fell over. That was it. So we were off to Neverland because we knew that it was safer and all that stuff. So it's just, it's a great memory in that way.
Talking about Neverland, I was watching a live from Rompia's Facebook. I don't know if you know Rompia. It's a fan. That the other day on the Mandala Bay, on the anniversary of Michael, and I was delighted to see you talking to Vigal.
Yeah.
I didn't know you were friends.
You know, for me, everyone, like, there's no categories for me in that way. Like in Twitter or Facebook or whatever, like if you're someone that supports my uncle, like, yes, I understand the difference between family and non-family, but you're still family to me in that way. And as we started this conversation, I do treat everyone the same. I've always have in that way, which is why I'm so approachable. But at the same time, I'll spend hours talking to you if I have those hours in that way, because I like people. And I also want people to know that I appreciate them defending my uncle, supporting my uncle, because they don't have to in that way. And so I have a high respect for you guys in what you do.
Oh, thank you.
I really do. And that's one of the reasons why when you asked me to be on this, it's like, it's an honor for me as well, because I love thanking you guys. And this is, you know, that you guys deserve to hit the moon in that way, because I just, it's been a long process, decades, you know, for a lot of us, decades of being ridiculed and being told that you're just fans and you can't see past it and all that stuff and in general. And so I think Michael Jackson fans have a different set of skin that they've, you know, rhinoceros skin, if you want to quote my own, you know, but we have to as well, you know, in that way, because we've been told we're wrong so many times, even though we're right. And then when it's found out that we're right, they don't say you're right. They just go on to the next thing in that way. And so we've seen the karma train work many ways now. And I always say the karma train is still working in terms of, because our people are starting to learn that we were always on the right side of history in that way. They're starting to figure it out now, because they were the ones lied to.